Okay, good evening. Welcome to Grand Blanc Township Committee of the Whole for July 9th. And Mr. Mansour, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, we'll ask for the approval of the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we will open the floor to public comment. And
Since I'm the only
Looks
public, I will get right up.
looks like we have
Enter 721.
a new guest here, Mr. Erb.
I had a little chuckle there. I remember last city meeting I made, Mr. Griffin was saying to council they may have to have a special meeting in regards to the fire department changes being made. Well, I've been looking for the special meeting and it hasn't shown up, but I noticed they canceled their meeting for tomorrow. And it's rescheduled for the 24th, so apparently we got the fire department all squared away and they don't need to meet anymore. Enough on that one. I was at the park, by the way, Saturday and Monday during these big events.
Bicentennial Park?
Bicentennial Park, yes. And the parking, yeah, it's really difficult there. And if you decided to get a parking lot big enough for all them cars, there would be no grass left. So the parking is sufficient, you just have to park on the grass because the whole place was filled from the dog park all the way to the pavilion. It was jam-packed. So that was great, that's wonderful. But I did happen to notice on, I believe it was Monday or Monday. The same hole is dug for the pipeline for the well that goes to the, I believe, the splash pad. Last year in August, I remember taking a picture, I got it. It was dug up and broke. Monday, it's dug up again. And I know this has been dug up several times to work on. I hope that we're digging this time, not to repair it, that we're trying to analyze how to fix it so we don't have to dig it up every year. It's open again, so something's got to be done with that. We just can't keep doing it every year. It's a waste of money. I also noticed that we have on your agenda capital improvements for the park. I noticed there's a playscape on there for $40,000. And we're going out for bids for that, is what this is all about. I hope we're going out for bids for all the parameters that we can do that playscape with. For it to be wood chips, for it to be rubber, for it to be the rubber matting. Rubber matting is 10 years, it's warranted for, and if it costs X number of dollars, this board can make a decision on how we want to spend that money, whether it be wood chips or rubber matting or whatever. To me, it seems that replacing that rubber stuff every 10 years is kind of expensive. But if that's what we want, that's what we want. Getting rid of the old rubber mats can be a problem too. There's a lot of weight there, a lot of rubber. How do you get rid of it? So I hope we get bids on all the levels of playscape matting or whatever we're going to do. I also noticed there's a mower on here for $13,000, and I think that's great. We need equipment. I just want to make sure we're going to get bids again on that from all the competitors. We got a good bid on it. And if the mower is correct, I don't even know how we mow the sled hill. I don't know if that's done with the Kubota, if it's done with a special piece of equipment, a zero turn. But to my knowledge, most engines that are warranty can't go over 25 degrees to maintain a warranty on
You're talking about 25 degrees of incline?
of an incline. So we have to be careful if we're gonna, use a vertical shaft zero turn.
Is that because of the oil pump?
It's a mechanical problem. So It's just, the sled hill really gets me. I don't know how they mow it. I've never seen it mowed. As much as I'm at the park, I've never seen it mowed. I do know they go up and down it because you see the tracks. So I just want to make sure we're getting the right piece of equipment. It might have to be 50,000, I don't know. But we should really look at it. And I know we took down the sled hill fence. Whether we want it or not is this board's decision, okay? Whether it's for aesthetics or safety. But it's not on that capital improvement. And I'd like to see something on that to make it look like a park instead of just a hill. And I think that ends what I have to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Okay. Any other public comment? We'll close public comment, and we will go to reviewing our Township Board agenda for our meeting on Thursday, July 11th. And we will have some minutes to approve. On the consent agenda, they have a number of items. The treasurer's financial activity, I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at the recap for a grand total of $1,557,000 in bills that we'll be paying. Mr. Manser?
Not on that in particular, but on the financial revenue and expenditure reports. I had a couple of questions on that,
Sure.
if it's the appropriate time.
Sure.
So on page 17, in the general fund revenue, there is a line item for $605,000. Let me just go to that. It's page 17 of the packet.
17 of our packet.
Yeah, which is, I think it's page 2 of 33. Let me find it here. Yes, it's down in miscellaneous revenue. And our year-to-date balance of that is 630, as of 6/30 was 605,258.23. What was that?
On page 17, where is that?
I'm sorry, it's on page 2 of 33 of the revenue and expense report, on page 17 of the packet.
And then where would I find it down?
So you'd
there?
find it in the grouping, it is 1, 2, 3 from the bottom.
And it's 605,000?
Yep. You see in
Year-to-date balance
the
for
1, 2,
miscellaneous
3.
revenue?
Yep, exactly right, in the 1, 2, 3, fourth column. So I'm just wondering what was the source of that miscellaneous revenue?
We can probably look into it and get an answer for you.
Okay. And then one more question, and this is on page 41 of the packet, and it's another question about the appropriation from the general fund of $1.1 million. And I just wanted to recall what that was about.
I see one for 598. Oh, is it? Well, maybe it's further down.
Yeah, it's further down. Let me see. So it would
It's
be
on page 44.
41 of the packet.
Yep.
So that
41?
Yeah, 41 of the packet. So that would be page.
26 of 33.
Yep. Exactly right.
And that's, where is that on that page then?
Let me
You're
see.
talking about?
As you go down to the. Give me 1 second. Bear with me for a minute.
The nice part about the way this is laid out on our website now is on the packet you can open up on the left. You're able to click on an outline of the packet, and then you can also put in the page number, and it will take you right to that particular page.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't seem to find it now. I'll have to. I'll look back through it in the interim here tonight and ask the question that way. But anyway, it was shown as an appropriation from the general fund for 1.1 million.
Okay.
So that was what I was having a question about.
I see one for 485,000, but I don't see one for 1.
Oh, you know what it. Yeah. I guess what it is maybe it's the combination of the 480. 5,655 plus the 598,657, yeah.
Okay, that might be what it is.
Yep.
I just had a question.
So, anyway, that was the question, is how did that work, or how did that,
What are those
what's
for?
the mechanics? Yeah, exactly right. Yep, thank you.
All right. Okay, anything else with regard to treasurer's financial activity?
Yes, I have
Okay.
a question.
Mr. Massey?
Why don't we do a report on the second quarter?
For investment report?
Yeah, investment report.
Well, we're getting into July, right? So, second quarter would be probably
They're probably into next month.
end of next month.
Yeah.
We talked about, we had a conversation about that when we get information, it's basically outdated. So it's useless to spend a lot of time, in my opinion, to distribute the information that we all have already gotten the information before it's given to the board, but not by a board member. It's just from the market itself. So can we expedite how we going to do that in the near future?
Well, some of that information has to be compiled and has to be returned, and some of it hasn't even come in from the people that write about the second quarter. You know, I'll have to look and see, but normally it's usually at least a month behind, because we're just barely into July here, okay? And so, and I haven't got the information yet, so.
Well, I think one of the
From
things...
the
yeah.
finance department, okay? They're not even done with their stuff, okay?
I think we're going to have an investment committee meeting, I believe. Did I see an email from Kathy Solstack with some potential dates from gentlemen from PFM? I know I need to respond to it yet, but
Megan sent it out to query when the investment committee members would be available.
I don't know if either of you gentlemen responded to her email yet?
I haven't responded.
Okay, we need to respond to Kathy and let her know what date would work, and we can talk about, it may not even be necessary to put the report together if you know, but we'll take a look at it and see.
Okay.
But, you know,
She's out of the office until Monday, Scott.
right, but she wanted us to
Yes.
let her know what date would work. So, we'll talk about the reporting process, and good question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so anything else with regard to treasurer's financial activity? Next item on the consent agenda is the board will consider an informational item, the 2020 road funding allocation for Genesee County Road Commission for the 50/50 allocation to be budgeted in 2020 will be $194,940. That's up slightly from this year, Mr. Limita?
It is, I think we were at
160 or
160 something, and so
About
we saw another
30,000.
nice increase this year. And again, what it does is kind of twofold. In one way, they get more road work done annually by bumping up our 50/50 allocation, because in order to qualify for it, we have to match it, so it's matching funds. It kind of forces our hand as a township to put additional funds in the roads, but then again, we get it back. So I mean, if you think about how it's worked, the last 2 years have seen those sizable increase from where we were forever. We're getting a lot more bang for our buck. We're able to fix a lot more roads with the funds, as long as the board's willing to allocate $194,000 to it.
Mr. Lehman, this brings up, with regard to this road thing, I've heard somebody tell me that they heard that we set aside money for sidewalks in every road project or something like this. I'm not sure where it came from, but have you ever heard that, or
No.
that we do that or did that, or I don't know. I've had somebody say that somebody here told them that, and it's like, I'm unaware of any kind of fund that sidewalk money goes into. Ms. Lane?
It was years ago when we got money from the road commission to put the sidewalk in over by the Perry House,
Okay.
so that it could connect, and they used special monies that they had that were dedicated for off-road improvements.
Yeah.
But we've never had anything as far as our own general fund or any other
Right.
monies other than that one that I
Okay.
know of that came from the county.
All right. I've never heard of the county having any money for sidewalks either, but
That was a special,
I think if somebody wants to put sidewalks in, they have to pay for it pretty much themselves, I
Yeah,
would guess.
The road commission doesn't have any funds available for sidewalks.
Yeah.
I think that with the condition of our roads, I think that the road commission would be pitchforks and
And hung,
outside if they were starting to build sidewalks instead of road repairs, to be honest with you.
right, Mr. Guzak?
Yeah, I just had a question, because I know, you know, when they fixed the, right there at Saginaw Street and Hill Road, they fixed that, they put in short sidewalks there, okay? They put curbs in and ramps, and then when they did some work down Saginaw Street here, down by Maple Road, they put in some sidewalks, and I know it was when the road was being done, I don't know who paid for it, but I remember it did pop up, and of course they said they try to do that in certain cases, but I don't know where the funds came from.
I think it's special grants that they just do that at intersections where they, make sure that it's handicap accessible. But they don't, replace the sidewalk for any distance, it's just
No,
right.
it wasn't any distance,
Right.
it was just
At
the
the
ramps and
intersection. Right.
and that could be what it was just the ramps, and when they put the ramps in, they at least put a short sidewalk, because if you look at where Little Caesars is, there's a ramp there and there's a little bit of a sidewalk there, and on the Rite Aid, on the Walgreens side, you'll see a little bit of a sidewalk, it's just like a little turn, but there's hardly any sidewalk.
Does the township ever pay for sidewalks to be put in?
You can, although, again, my response would be, you might want to focus your available dollars on road repairs before you started investing in sidewalks. Because I just think that's we all know, we'd love to have sidewalks be more walkable, we want to encourage it. It's a great goal to have, but let's face it, right now the funding level just doesn't exist for us to be able to do that.
So the non-motorized pathways, so for example, along the Dort Highway extension, we're going after, approximately $1 million in grants to pay for that non-motorized pathway. That's probably a whole different scenario of dollars than what you could go after for, that money wouldn't be available for sidewalks in a residential area.
Depends. If you're,
Okay.
if you're applying for grants to safe routes to schools, whether those are, pathways, sidewalks, whatever, they're absolutely, those funds could be used for that. And when you're seeing these road construction projects, a lot of those were federal funds, so it could be a condition of those, when they're doing a complete rebuild with federal funds, that they make those intersections handicap accessible with curb cuts and sidewalks stubbed out for future buildability for multi-purpose paths to come off of the Air Connect.
Have we been notified of any project on McCandless Road yet in terms of them repaving that? I know that it's been reclassified, but we haven't received any notification that there's a plan to pave it immediately, right?
We have not. In fact, the meeting that we had where they discussed that it was reclassified means that there are going to be funds available, that it won't have to come from the township to do that road, but as far as a firm date of when that repavement process will take place, we haven't been given anything as far as a firm date on that.
I've heard that, the township should pay the extra money or should have gotten money ready to be able to pave the shoulder or put a bike lane or non-motorized path along there. And, I wish that we had an extra $650,000 or whatever it would cost that we could just scoop up and throw at that project. But, we're trying to gather money to pay for things like post-retirement benefits, retiree health care, what have you. I really don't see extra money in our budget for just saying, hey, we're going to do this, on the spur of the moment. But I more than anybody would love to see pathways, but we also have to spend money responsibly. But I just wondered, because I've heard it a couple of places now that, hey, they're planning on, doing McCandless, and it's like, did I miss something that I didn't know about? But
No.
I know it's in the plan down the road, but nothing immediate. Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, who owns the sidewalk?
Who owns the sidewalk?
Yes.
I'll let Mr. Laddie answer that.
Depends on where it is. A lot of cities they own their own streets and they have right-of-ways that they control, and they'll a lot of times in the city you'll see sidewalks actually in the city right-of-way.
Yes.
City of Flint, for example. And in townships, we don't, because we don't own the roads, it's either gonna be, it'll be most of the time it'll be county right-of-way. And the county right-of-way is significant, but they have control over their right-of-ways, and they have basically the authority of that, over that right-of-way as far as sidewalks and maintenance of sidewalks and things. And then when you go to local roads and townships, again, it's just gonna be all county right-of-way. And the problem that you have is when you don't have uniform access to those right-of-ways, it gets very expensive to try to put in a pathway because we don't already own the ground underneath the proposed path. And so sometimes you get into condemnation, it gets very expensive and it gets difficult. So townships as a whole are significantly handicapped when it comes to putting in sidewalks in terms of expense and access, and they also have a tough time enforcing the maintenance of the sidewalks. And so unfortunately, in addition to money, sidewalks are a little bit more difficult with townships than they are with cities.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor?
Yes.
So I think it's a very positive thing here that it looks like we're getting around a 15% year-over-year increase in the allocation from this, and I was very interested in the calculation that was used to determine that. And from this, it was the allocation is based 35% on population, and it looks like we lead the way there.
Yes.
Of all, I mean, it's 15%, which is more than Flint, more than anyone. So that's I think it says a lot about the attractiveness of the township. The other portion of it's based on certified local road millage. And I guess I'd like a little bit better understanding, maybe not right now, but...
Mileage.
Oh, it says mileage.
Certified
So it's
road
the amount,
mileage.
okay, so it's the amount of roads
Yes.
that this county is responsible for.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, changed a little bit.
Yeah. Better. Much
One
better.
less L.
One less, yeah. Anyway, so that was, I thought the funding mechanics there was very interesting.
It's the same formula the state uses for doling out the money to the counties, basically, and they do the same for how they dole it out to the municipalities here locally.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so that is a nice increase. The board, item C, the board will consider the motion to accept the resignation of Bill Thewalt from the Historic Commission. I've received a couple of nominations for that commission, and one of our next board meetings later this month, I'll have copies of those to everybody. If anybody has anybody else they want to consider, please have them fill out the form that's online and have them send it to me. Under operational issues, the board will consider a motion to accept the proposal from M-Terra to extend the solid waste contract for 5 years expiring in 2025. Mr. Lemata?
So we've had a contract with them, and as a provision of that contract, we both have the opportunity to request a contract extension for our solid waste collection recycling program. They asked us about it about a year ago, and we weren't prepared to really take a look at it 2 years out before the expiration. We've met a few times since then, and he's offered us the option 1, 2, or 3 that I presented. First one is remaining at the $9.85 per unit per month, plus that recycling recover surcharge. My concern with that is, currently he's got it at $127 recycling cost per ton. It'll go up 10 cents for every ton increase. It'll go down for every ton decrease. It makes it so that it's a variable that we can't control. If we're already at $127, we know there's no market for recycling right now. China was the biggest user of recyclables. Since they stopped taking it, I think most of this is getting shipped to Canada, and we're paying a considerable cost for that recycling. And so option 1, well, we could lock in that $9.85 with a 2% increase plus that recycling surcharge. The first year would be $11.10. I look at option 2, where we just take a price and it's a fixed price, and it goes same thing, kind of 2% increase for 5 years. That would put us at $10.87, cheaper than the first year under option 1, and then a 10-year. But I just don't think that this time that locking it down for 10 years makes sense. A lot can change in 10 years, whether it's even their service level. Right now, these guys have offered us continually excellent service, but if you give them a 10-year contract, hard to say that it will continue. The upside is if we just rather just go out and just bid the whole thing before next year when it expires. This one would be an extension of our current agreement. We can go out there and do that, but there's no guarantee that Emterra will come back. It looks like the bids that have been out there most recently are considerably higher than ours, and in fact the ones that Emterra has bid on in the local area are higher than what the price that they have offered us. So at this time, my recommendation is that the board would consider taking that 5-year, that option 2 with a fixed price for and extending it through 5 years.
I have
Mr. Manser?
a question. In the recommendation letter, Superintendent Lehman, in one of the paragraphs starts out that Emterra has provided exceptional service to the residents of Grand Blanc Township, their response to complaints, service, etc. Do we actually have any data or any kind of scorecard that we could cite, that maybe we could put out on our website that talks about testimonials or some kind of scoring that would put some numbers or some kind of data behind that?
No, we don't have a scorecard, but we could create a response for residents to respond back. I can tell you that I've been here it'll be 4 years next month, and the handful of complaints that I've dealt with these guys have always been handled immediately, professionally, and responsive. If you call their customer service number, the nice thing is, even if you missed it by not getting your garbage out in time on Wednesday, they dedicate a truck to Thursday to come back to Grand Blanc Township and pick up anything that was missed. But really, the handful of complaints that I've dealt with, these guys have responded back in that 4 years, and that's what I base it on. Is that it's been a handful of complaints, and just the response to those has just been fantastic.
So I guess my point is that when we lock into 5-year agreements or something like this, we ought to be able to point to something besides the economics that says, they're doing a good job for us, and this really helps. I mean, if we have something like that, it certainly does support the case.
We could try to put a survey out if you think that would be worth
Or something, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Massey?
Yes, Superintendent, do you mind expounding on if you miss on Wednesday, there's a loosely run truck scheduled to pick up? Because I haven't seen that loosely run truck.
You have to call the customer service number, but they dedicate a truck to come back on Thursdays for anything that's been missed. If somebody calls and says, the one thing folks need to understand, like we get calls that say they haven't come and they've missed my recyclables, or they haven't picked up my yard waste or my garbage for 2 weeks in a row. These guys have GPS on their trucks. They know whether the truck was at that stop or not. They've also tagged some mailboxes where people left a complaint that, hey, these guys have not picked it up. They have GPS that shows they were there, and they'll put a sticker on the mailbox to say, look, here's me putting a sticker on your mailbox. Here's a picture of me putting a sticker on your mailbox. Here's my GPS that says I've stopped in front of your driveway and your garbage isn't here, and it's 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So they are pretty responsive. They absolutely follow up on these customer complaints. So when we call and say, look, I just got off the phone with somebody, he says, this is the 4th time in 4 months. They say, give me the address, and they'll give you back the GPS data on where the truck was there and what time it was there. So when they say they come back on Thursdays, they come back on Thursdays. If you felt you were missed and you call the customer service number, they call that truck that's dedicated to Grand Blanc Township on Thursdays to come back and pick up if there was any that were truly missed, or if they'll just come back to the area and pick up. They've done that since I've been here.
Now, notice, I have to give them some props on it. In my subdivision, they have not missed any homes, okay, because I pay close attention to that. If my garbage has not been picked up in a reasonable amount of time, I look at the neighbors, and all the neighbors is in the same position as I am, okay?
Yep.
What's funny is I think that they do a fabulous job, but some of the complaints are, hey, they didn't pick up my garbage at the same time this week as they usually do. And it's kind of like, it has to be picked up at the same time every week. I don't understand that, but I mean, especially after a holiday, sometimes, you know, or with all the rain we had this spring, people were delayed in getting, you know, a lot of the yard waste out until when it did warm up, and then it was just like everybody had, you know, a driveway full of it for them to pick up. But I know I put out my $118 worth of garbage probably every couple weeks. I mean, if I had to haul that stuff away, I'd be paying a lot more than $118 a year. But yeah, a survey wouldn't be bad if we can get, you know, people to respond on both sides of it. Unfortunately, you know, but we might be able to do something on social media, what have you. Yes.
But Mr. Chair,
Yes.
they have changed may I say, the times. Say if they normally come
Oh,
and
yeah.
pick up your garbage at 10,
Mhm.
now they may not get your garbage till 5
Right.
p.m.
Yes.
Okay, 10 a.m. now it may be 5 p.m. Okay.
Well, part of it is with the spring, you know, once spring hits and people start setting out their compost,
Yes.
there's a lot more stuff to pick up. I mean, just, I know you see it when you drive through your neighborhood. But,
Yes.
so, good point. Okay, so we'll take a look at this Thursday, and anything else on that issue?
I will tell you that Mr. Garvin from Ontario wanted to be here tonight. He had 2 other meetings that he had to attend first. He said he was still going to try to come here before the end of our meeting. I told him, seriously, it'd be fine. He can come on Thursday, and if there's any follow-up questions. So I don't know if he's still going to pop his head in here at some point tonight, but really, I don't know how many questions you have. I thought it was a pretty complete packet, and that he will be here on Thursday to answer any questions.
One of the things that is always a concern for me is the tipping rates that the state of Michigan charges, and we're actually one of the lowest, have one of the lowest tipping rates in the Midwest, which the tipping rate is what a landfill pays, you know, state, right, per ton or whatever, and that's one of the reasons why we import garbage, is because we're so cheap when it comes to the tipping rate. That could always change, you know, depending on Lansing, because that tipping rate pays for a few things like cleanups of contaminated sites around the state and what have you. And that fund isn't flush with money anymore, so I've heard talk in the past about, you know, looking at that rate again, which if we lock in our price with Ontario for 5 years, I think that probably, even if the tipping rate were to go up, I don't know that our contract would be affected by that. So, something to consider. Okay, next item on the agenda under operational issues, the board will consider a resolution to adopt the Genesee County Stormwater and Flood Control Design Standard requirements. Mr. Lemata? Or Mr. Laddie?
Let me just address the fact that it's not in your packet is a result of my office not forwarding it to the superintendent's office on time. What it is, though, is a resolution that basically adopts the Genesee County stormwater discharge standards, and this is a recommendation from Mr. Sears and Mr. Wheatley from Rowe. And there's an interesting exception in it, and by the way, I'm going to I'll send a resolution to you in a moment by email. But it talks about a requirement B is accepted from the standards that have been put forward by the state and also the county. And I'm reading Jack Wheatley's email about requirement B, and it has to do with flow volumes and rates for stormwater runoff. And it's interesting because requirement B, he says, requires runoff volumes and rates to be limited to pre-development conditions, which results in significant retention pond issues, both in terms of volume but also space. And so what the resolution itself doesn't say a whole lot, other than we're making a permit as a part of the county permit pursuant to the state's regulation process. And I think Mr. Wheatley pointed out the last time we did this was maybe 4 years ago, and we've been operating under the same format, I think, over the last 4 years. So unless, Mr. Lehman, if you have anything to add, I'll forward this resolution to you, and it's not a whole lot to not a whole lot of information in it, other than just referral to the standards.
Mr. Mansour and then Mr. Massey.
I'm sorry, did Superintendent Lehman, you were about to say?
But I just want, for point of clarification, this is really a permit that we submitted to the DEQ in 2015, so 4 years ago. And the permit application, and it's really stormwater discharge permit, just like Mr. Laddie said, but literally we submitted it to the DEQ in 2015, and then they came back just recently as part of it and said, hey, we need the township to pass a resolution to adopt the Genesee County Stormwater and Flood Control Design Standard requirements. Not that we haven't already been operating under that very thing. I mean, it's not changing what we do.
So we just need something formally saying that we do it. Okay.
So,
Mr.
so
Mansour?
what are the, I mean, are this, I mean, the discharge standards, I mean, what are the standards? Have we, I mean, have we anticipated, you know, whatever touch points we have with that? Have we anticipated the funding or the requirements, whatever it is, to comply with those? And are there really any alternatives? I mean, could we say, you know, no, we don't support these standards, or you know, what's the implications of that?
Well, I can send you a link to the standards so that you
Okay.
can see them actually, and that might be helpful for you. But no, we can't say no. I mean, the permit is required by us, and especially because we operate under the county standards as it is. And our permit to do so is a required permit that we have a plan for, basically for our stormwater discharge. And just as part of it, all it really is saying is that, yes, we've adopted their standards, and I think we can't not adopt their standards and get the permit through that's required through the DEQ.
But we've anticipated whatever that means by adopting their standards, or the cost of that is in our DPW budgets?
When they go to do stormwater discharge for us, we don't have the ability to decline as it is. When they create an area for us, we are going to participate, whether we like it or not. And
So-
we don't even get to weigh in on the dollar amount spent, quite frankly.
Let me see if I can put this,
Doesn't
I
matter.
don't know, as Mr. Massey put it, street lawyer terms. But so for example, if a development like a Magna wants to build a building, the county's going to have to sign off on any water discharge or runoff, what have you. And they're not going to allow, I mean, and they ask us not to give you a permit for building unless they've approved everything on those types of things. So it's probably not so much a matter of cost as it is, if we don't want to comply with it, we'll see the end of any construction here, because the county isn't going to approve what they need to approve if we're not going to operate under their standards, right?
Well, one of the things that I've seen this implemented by us through development standards at the planning commission level, for example. We will very often, I mean, we'll look at all sorts of elements of a site plan, but then we'll also require developers to have made an application to the county and gotten approval for their stormwater runoff. And it's interesting, this is partially based in facts in Grand Blanc and partially hypothetical, but there was a moment where Grand Blanc Township tried to deviate from a plan that the county had put forward, and it was very, they were very direct about their authority to control all of the stormwater runoff aspects of developments in Grand Blanc Township and property in Grand Blanc Township. And frankly, it's a good thing, because we don't want to be dealing with this. We don't have the expertise to deal with it. I think you guys get a lot of complaints, neighbor-to-neighbor complaints and things like that. And really the expertise and the authority lies with the county drain commission. And what Dennis says is true. They put forward the standards, and Mr. Mansour, I forwarded you the link to the standards, and anyone else who wants them can have them. But they're really, frankly, it's a burden that we don't want. And,
No.
and even if it comes to us in a heavy-handed way, or in a way that sometimes causes us some difficulties complying, we're better off for it, frankly.
And especially this spring with all the rain that we had, all the precipitation really caused runoff to be an issue between neighbors and what have you, farmers. And if we take responsibility for it, it's going to be a whole different, we're going to probably have to create a department for that. So, and expensive too. So, okay, Mr. Massey, do you have any questions on that?
You answered my question.
Okay. The street lawyer thing helped?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lehman?
Before you move on, Dan Garman from Mterra has just joined the party. And we didn't move yours to the back of the agenda. We went through it. I just want to let you know so you don't sit here for the whole meeting, is that we went through, there was a few questions we asked and answered. I think the board's very comfortable with our discussion. I told them that I didn't know if you'd be here tonight or not, or if you'd be here on Thursday if there's any questions. But while he's here, if there's any questions, I thought we could
Sure.
check back an
Come on
agenda
up.
item to see if there was.
We can jump back for a minute. I don't think anybody will have a problem.
And Dan, just for your information, I kind of walked him through option 2, that out of the 3 options, and why I selected option 2 and why I think that might be in our best interest. And
Sounds good.
I don't know if the board has any other questions for you, if there's anything you want.
Do you have anything you want to tell us?
Yeah, I had planned this whole little spiel to be a quick 5 minutes. Am I okay to go into that?
Sure.
All right, sounds good. I just want to thank you very much for letting me bring this presentation to you. If you've had a chance to look at the letter, you're not the first community we've sent a letter like this to. With the changing marketplace in the waste and recycling industry over the last few years, it's been really important that as our contracts, before they come to an end, to me, representing, the guy who's the middleman kind of between you guys and your waste hauler. So if Dennis calls me, or if Kathy calls me, a resident calls me, because I give out my phone number online and everything, is that I jump on things in advance. So caring about your residents and the residents of, let's say, a Flushing Township or Davison, I got to think of those things because that's my job, to kind of be the middle guy. So when the rates are going up, if you looked at the competitive in this bid, 2 communities in Genesee County have gone out to bid in the last 2 years. Just 2. Forest Township, whose services are weekly trash and bi-weekly recycling and 3 days of compost a year. That's the only services they have. They previously were paying a little less than $10, and when they went out to bid, their waste hauler that had serviced them for almost 30 years bid, I believe, $14 a month. Yeah, $14. So we ended up, Mterra put in a bid, which we took what they were doing their current rates at, increased it by the difference in the recycling costs, and we ended up getting that contract for $11.31, which was still a giant increase over what they were paying previously. So we started that contract on January 1. Things have gone pretty smooth. Then in, I believe, March or April, Flushing City went out to bid. We actually just started that last week. But their previous hauler had asked for a re-up for $12, which represented a $2 per household increase due to recycling. And they said, no, let's go out to bid. Well, that same person who had provided them with 30 years of service gave them a bid price of $14.30. Which we were able to not be much lower, and so we came in at $13.36, and we were the low bidder for what was there, and now we're in Flushing City as well. So knowing all this competitive that's kind of been going on in the marketplace, in the last 3 months, we've extended Davison Township for 10 years. We've extended Flushing contract. We've extended Flint Township's contract. We've extended Richfield's contract. So anybody that's got about a year or a little over a year to go, we've been extending so that I can get them the best price now without risk. When it goes out to bid and people start looking at the market prices, the prices, if you look here or in Oakland County, are skyrocketing because of the cost of recycling materials, because of the cost to get labor now in this marketplace. It's not easy like before. When we first started Grand Blanc Township, it was easy to find guys to drive trucks. It was easy to find guys to be on the back of the trucks to throw garbage. We had a line out the door. Now we're begging for employees all the time. Every waste hauler is. because you know, the unemployment rate's so low. People don't need those jobs anymore. So I did my best here to try to protect all the customers that have been good to me over the years by going to Ontario and going to bat to get prices. And then I sat down with Dennis for a little while and we talked about it and we tried to see what was the best thing that made sense for Grand Blanc Township. But things I wanted to let you know, this year, you just mentioned a minute ago, the rain. Before you got to July this year, Grand Blanc Township had already put out more grass clippings than they did last year. So if you can look at how a garbage company can't prepare for those things, if you have 5 days of rain and 2 days of sun and everyone mows their lawn and puts out bags, you don't know. We get days where we'd only get half the compost off the ground because trucks were pulling 5 and 6 loads, and last year there was no days of 5 and 6 loads. But it wasn't an M-Terra problem. If you went to around the county, there was bags left in Flint, there were bags left in everywhere. Davison, and you've seen it, you're around, it's a composting issue because there's just so much. Now you're seeing it where it's not affecting, where you're not having so much rain lately. You're seeing things start to regulate. But if you can imagine, last year you did compost for April, May, June, July, August, September, and October, because we don't count the leaf season. November's more about leaves. All that time, this year, we already accomplished that before we even got to July because of all the rain. I just wanted to let you know that. And last but not least, we were also the only hauler in Michigan that didn't ask any municipality for increase due to recycling costs. We were the only waste hauler. And it's basically because our company's built in recycling. We take all of our products to our own MRFs in Canada, so we're able to kind of regulate and control that a little bit better. And 3 major points in why M-Terra fits Grand Blanc Township, what I think really well. A, you have someone you can call at all times. I've taken calls from not only your residents, but board members on weekends, and then went and picked it up in my own car, just to make sure your residents have that type of voice. 2, we do the whole service on a Wednesday. And while that might not sound like a convenient person or a convenience, it's not for us. It'd be easier if we took Grand Blanc and did it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But it's really convenient that we do every municipality in one day. That way, you guys answering the phones only have to do it one day of the week. Plus, your residents don't have any confusion on holidays. Everyone puts it out together. And 3, we've worked together for a long time, and I hope you guys can respect that. As soon as I had an opportunity that I thought I could make sure that you guys saved money for your residents, I brought it to you. So, thank you. Any questions?
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You sort of alluded to that. Let me use Grand Blanc Township as an example.
Okay.
This is what I heard you say. If we went out for bid, you would know about it. So that means we asked you for a bid and you would raise the price.
We'd have to.
I mean, that's what I heard you say.
We'd have to. So when I do an extension, I go to them, to my waste hauler, which is M-Terra. Like after Dennis, we met first, and he went back, and I'm like, hey, here's where the market's at. Let's work. So we kind of put together pricing. I went back, got them to agree to it, and came back and gave pricing for 5 and 10 years. If a bid goes out, it goes through a whole model of profit and what competition is. So if you look at the competition in the last 2 years, everyone's gone up by $2 or $3. We can't bid less than that, and we're bidding at the $2 or $3 increase and still getting all the business and being the low bidder. So yeah, the price would go up if it went out to bid.
So it's sort of like, if we don't, we pay, and if we don't like what we're getting, we still pay.
Oh, if you don't like what you're getting, I hope you call and nag me until you get exactly what you want.
No, I'm not saying that.
Oh.
I thought you would grasp what I was saying, but you're not getting it. You're between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
If you give up what you got, you're going to lose money. In other words, you're going to have to pay out more money.
Right.
If you go out for bids.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can give an example, and not with this waste hauler. You guys both know because they're the one representatives I work with. I work for 4 different waste haulers across the country I'm doing this job: government sales for waste haulers, customer service, making sure people get what they're supposed to get. I had a situation in Michigan with another waste hauler where I begged them not to go out to bid, and they went out to bid and had a $3 increase and went back to the exact same hauler. And it was just because they decided we wanted to catch a bid. We want to do a bid. And while it sounds, I think, like the right thing to do, if you're getting good service, which I beg whoever can get me on that Blanc Township Facebook page so I can hear what the residents are saying, I would love to, because in the other communities, I'm now on their Facebook, and that way I can answer those questions or solve those problems before it becomes one.
Put in a request to join it, and
Okay.
we'll authorize it.
What's the exact name of it?
Well, the one that's the unofficially the township. The township has its own.
Right.
Which hopefully you can get on that one, but
Okay.
also it's residents of Blanc Township is the one that's unofficial.
I'll send you a
I'm one of the
request
administrators,
as soon as
yeah.
I get to the car.
So the question, is it possible to, I know one of the problems with recycling is, that China has decided our stuff isn't, clean. Is it possible, and I know I'm guilty because I thought I was doing a great job of throwing everything that looks recyclable into the bin until I started realizing that, hey, plastic bags can't go in there, and a long time ago I learned about pizza boxes and why they couldn't go in there, but I think hangers and stuff like that, there's a whole list of stuff that you shouldn't throw in there, but somehow we need to educate our people a little bit more. I think people are willing to, but they need to know what can and can't go in there, and if you're going to throw a peanut butter jar in there, hey, do I need to wash the thing out? Or
Recycling's so hard, really, because
Right.
if I educate all of you guys to do it totally right, Mr. Laddie does it wrong. He possibly contaminated everything you guys did right.
Right.
So it only takes one to mess up. So if you guys do it all right and he does it wrong, it could have ruined everything you guys all did. So it is a industry problem. We can educate to hopefully fix it a little bit.
But we're not
But-
going to.
You guys take the phone calls. Well, we're dealing with stuff all the time. People still put trash bags in their recycling, and then call and say it's a misstop. It is a big education thing, and it's in every waste hauler situation. The benefit you'll have is I can commit to this. If you guys do this extension I would say within the first year or two, MTER will have a recycling center close to here. It'll either be maybe in Lansing. They're looking to put one Lansing, Flint areas, mid-Michigan somewhere soon. Because they want to commit to recycling. And they do commit to education. So, we send out materials, we do Facebook stuff, we do a lot of things to try. We've got a huge list. Blanc Township has over 8,000 people that recycle, 8,000 households. So, the only problem is if you get 50 that don't read what you send out, and everyone else does it right, they may have ruined it for everybody else. Not ruined it, you know what I'm saying, but contaminated it.
Right.
So, but it's still the right thing to do.
Are you bidding on Waterford?
Yeah,
You are?
yeah. And I bid on Orion.
Because I know I see a lot.
MTerra's not, I'm not.
Okay. Because I noticed a lot going on in
But
Waterford.
that has to do, and that's a perfect thing. I was going to bring that up, but I didn't know if anyone would understand what's going on in Orion Township and Waterford. Now, they've been independent. So every household had to call and sign up for their own waste hauler. Well, now, for a while, everyone thought it was okay to have choice. Everyone gets choice, that's the best thing. Where you guys' rate there would be like by far the cheapest, probably half of what they're paying every month. But now there was a couple locals there. When I say locals there, it was like a company called Odd Jobs. There was a couple little waste haulers. They had 1 and 2 trucks. So they would help drive down the price to still well over what anyone in Genesee County is paying. But then all of them went out of business because the market's so bad. So now the big haulers then said, all right, well, those local guys who drove the price down for all these years are gone. We're going to start charging $40 a month. You had no negotiating power. So the politicians there said, all right, well, we can't let people pay $40 a month for garbage pickup, so we're going to go out to bid. So Orion went out to bid. Those bids were due 2 weeks ago, and then Waterford's on its way around. So, but it's the industry of the market right now. The little teeny hauler is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
All right, question?
Yes.
So, Mr. Garman,
Yes.
do you, I think I hear you saying that you represent multiple multiple trash haulers, I guess, is that the
Yep.
term?
Yep, just normally one per area though.
Okay.
I don't let them cross over areas.
And so, I mean, first of all, how does Mterra compare to the other haulers that you represent? And then second, is there some kind of survey or customer satisfaction technique that Mterra uses or can use?
Well, they normally do follow-ups, like can we send you an email things. It's hard to keep people. For the 1%, well, let me go with their first one first.
Okay.
Comparing the haulers, Mterra by far is the smallest that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're very large in Canada and they represent the Thumb and the Port Huron area and a very large, by far the biggest hauler in Genesee County.
Mm-hmm.
On the grand scheme of things, they're the smallest hauler I work with. The one in Florida is 5 states. The one in the north in Minnesota is pretty much the whole state. And the hauler that I work with down in Oakland County is locations all over the south, all over Canada, all over Michigan.
Okay.
They're the smallest. They're also the only one that I think you can reach out and I could have the owner here to talk to you. So I think that carries a lot of weight. The only one where the owner will come to town to check on things. They're also the only one that's located inside Genesee County with their corporate office.
Okay.
So they're the only ones that I could probably get their general manager in your meeting. So, and their CEO, like everybody could come in here. And forgive me, your next question.
That was kind of like
Oh,
you
customer
work
satisfaction.
on customer satisfaction. Do they actually do anything?
They
with
do.
that?
We have 3 customer service reps that work and answer the phones. I do my best to try to not have truck drivers and guys that work on the truck talk to residents, but sometimes residents talk to them, which sometimes doesn't work out well for any waste hauler. I think the 3 customer service people that they have do a very good job. But when you figure that 1.5% of the population has a customer service issue in the waste industry, that's kind of an industry-wide type thing, those people are not normally really nice on the phones. So even here at your office, if anyone raises their voice, seems upset, I've instructed these guys for years, please don't let your people take those calls. The ladies in your office that answer the phone here, super nice. They don't need to be yelled at about a garbage problem, just immediately give them my cell phone number. But I will guarantee this, there's no other waste hauler doing that. There's no waste hauler with a customer service rep that says, here's my cell phone, have every angry customer call me. And I'll go to their house sometimes and talk to them. I'll pick up their trash in my car and go dump it, clean out their can and bring it back. Because those accounts are my accounts. I take great pride in those accounts. I live in Davison.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything
All right.
else?
Thank you very much, I think.
All right, thank you. And I will be here Thursday for sure.
Okay.
So-
All right, thanks, Mr. Garman. Okay, next item on the agenda for operational issues. Board will consider a resolution to authorize Bikes on the Bricks Incorporated to make applications to the Genesee County Road Commission on behalf of the township for the necessary permits to allow a police escorted ride and temporary block the intersections. Baldwin Road eastbound into Gale Road, to Perry Road westbound to Belsey Road, and then northbound to westbound Maple to Genesee Road on September 7th, 2019. And that'll be approximately from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Mr. Lemata, would you like, Chief Wiles, would you like to comment?
Probably a great question for Chief Wiles. It's temporary blocking only to allow people through, so I don't think they're blocking off the road or anything. And I think, Chief, it's all you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a yearly event, Bikes to the Bricks. This is not a Grand Blanc Township Police Department sponsored event, although we do have a couple officers that participate in the ride and are actively involved with Bikes to the Bricks, which occurs down in the city of Flint every year. The route they're taking is advantageous. This is led by sworn police officers in uniform on police bikes. Usually when we ask for road closures in the township, it's a stress on our manpower because we have to close those intersections responsible. This is not the case for this event. These sworn officers are actually doing the traffic control as they're part of the ride. They're trained to do so. So our involvement as a police department is minimal. So that's why in this particular event I would have no concerns with as far as from a police department standpoint. The route is advantageous. This, you know, typically, you know, Saginaw, Dorrit, Hill Road, those are the difficult ones. Baldwin Road is easy. You have Holly Road to get through. Then they're going over into Atlas Township. So I don't see any huge concerns, safety issues that I would bring to your attention.
Is this a new route, or is this?
This is a new route. They alter the route a little bit every year. Why they do that, I don't know, but this is a new route. When they altered the route early on in the process, they did reach out to me, the Planning Commission, with the event, and asked my thoughts on it. Our standpoint, this is a good route for us. This isn't any high traffic areas throughout the township, really.
There's really no construction in any of those areas either, probably, right now?
No.
From the looks of it. Any questions for Chief? Okay, thank you very much. Next item D, the board will consider a motion to approve the proposed 2019 Parks and Recreation Capital Expenditures Plan. Mr. Lemata?
So, you know, as the board knows, we've changed the process, thanks to Trustee Adkins, and really, you know, we took a deep dive in and looked at how our process was working on approving capital improvement projects with the voter-approved quarter mill. This year, because we had put out a 5-year one and it was really brought to us previously by the Parks and Rec Commission as well as Parks and Rec staff. This year we're really trying to do it differently, where it's township generated and what we think are the highest priority items that need to be repaired, either because they've been neglected for a long time or there's some safety concerns. These obviously are very broad-based projects. None of these projects, other than one, the mower for $13,000. I actually do have 2 bids in. They both came in exactly the same. They're the only 2 that bid on it, $12,799. That's because we need to move that one out relatively quick. They did test drive this particular tractor. They drove it up. It's specifically for use on the sledding hill because it's weighted and has dual wheels on it. Currently they use a tractor with a sidearm mower to do it. It's not the appropriate way to mow that field. This mower actually is. That isn't coming before you today. I just happened to get those in today, so I brought it along as a point of how we'll move forward. What we're really asking is, do you agree with the prioritization of the projects that we put out there? When you look down through there, these were between DPW Director Sears, myself, and Acting Parks and Rec Director Carol Newman, as well as input from the maintenance, Parks and Rec maintenance guys who work in Bicentennial Park about some of the most important things that need to be upgraded. We could certainly spend a lot more money on the pole barn or some other things, or it would be nice to get some other things done. But primarily those softball fields, we got $70,000 worth of grant funds for those, so that $80,000 has to be allocated. The road absolutely just needs to be done. It was such a mess after all the rain we got this spring that we've already brought some gravel in there because it was an emergency basis to get that parking fixed before the big Fire Sticks tournament this past weekend. The metal roofing on the pavilions, the one is called the quad, where it splits by the 4 fields. That desperately needs to be done, and then the one over by the pond also needs to be done. We thought if we did metal roofing out there that it'll last forever, and it makes a real nice look, and it can also be a nice pop of color, whether it's blue, red, whatever, that you'd be able to see from the roadway. The soccer field irrigation repair, they've been nursing that thing together, I found out, for the last several years, and it continues to break, and they dig it up and try to fix it and piece it back together. I was not aware of that. That just needs to be fixed. We can't, there's no point in them being out there digging this thing up and trying to continue to piece it back together. The splash pad shed and a pad for it to sit on, the one that's out there is disintegrating from being on the ground. I think what we need to do is pour a pad and just get one of those sheds. So again, all of the prices that we put in here are guesstimates. We did have a new vehicle in there for a pickup truck, but we decided to hold off on that. We will make them one of our DPW vehicles later this year available, and we can probably sell to them for about $6,000 rather than have that purchase of a $30,000 vehicle. We've tried to be as economic as possible. As far as the playscape surface floor, it's $40,000. We haven't looked at, we haven't gone that out for bids or anything of the kind. You'll be presented with every flooring. We're looking at the currently one that was there. It lasted for 16 years, which roughly equated to about $2,000 a year, or roughly the same amount you pay in wood chips a year, with a heck of a lot safer. But we're going to look at that flooring that they put in out at the ADA, one by the North Pavilion.
Right.
We're going to get comparisons of all the different options, and we'll look at it from a safety factor as well as from a cost effectiveness factor. Maybe it'll get done for less than $40,000, but we'll bring that back to the board. Each one of these will come back to the board as they come up for bids.
Mr. Lehman, on that, the road, I agree. We've got a lot of things we're gonna need to fix out there, and one of them are the roads. I think, part of the problem is that I don't think that maybe they're not ditched very well, because it looks like the entrance is getting wider and wider, and I think it's probably from people trying to avoid the mud, and so they go out further. So I think if we're gonna gravel those, we need to take a look at, and I'm not an expert on the roads, but from what I've heard from Mr. Sears and from the road commission is, one of the things that kills a road is not having a place for the water to run. And probably the same, theory is holding true there. But also I wonder if we put any chloride do any kind of chloride treatment on that gravel road, just to hold the dust down. The people,
We do.
Do we? Okay, all right. Because I noticed when I was out there for the tournament, the north part of it, that's the north, north of the some of the fields here, the south part looks pretty good in terms of the dust, but you get north of the pavilions and it looks pretty dusty. But
We do include it in our chloride program.
okay, all right, good. And then that splash pad, that shed or whatever, is that where they're doing the digging that Mr. Erd had mentioned?
I'm not sure where Mr.
Oh,
Ert's
okay.
talking about.
All right,
It may have more to do with the irrigation system
Okay.
that they're having issues with. I don't know.
okay. Mr. Guzak?
No, I didn't
Oh,
have
okay, I
any.
thought you had.
No.
Yeah, Mr. Atkins?
Just two things. And I could be mistaken on this, but I thought either we discussed it a few months back, or maybe it's coming up, the replacement of any type of, I guess where I'm going with it is if there's any type of replacement plan for any DPW equipment, like a pickup truck, would that be something we would consider instead of surplusing that to give that to Parks and Rec? Is that part of the...
That's exactly where that $6,000 allocated for the 3/4 ton pickup is that we think that we can, one of the things in our purchasing policy when it comes to declaring surplus equipment is that we can look to see if it's needed for any other of our other departments or governmental entities, and we can make fair value offer then and make that trade. It'll be one of our DPW service trucks, and it'll be better than the trucks they have now. We would like to get them a new truck at some point, but it just seems that that's deferrable, that we can wait a couple years before that comes out in the meantime, because there's so many other high priority. Well, let's face it, what we're dealing with is about 25 years or so of deferred maintenance on so many things, and we're just trying to do the best we can and prioritize it appropriately to fix the things that matter most. We got to get the fields done because that brings in the tournaments. We got to get the road done because we had 4,000 people out there last weekend. Those are the little things that just that deferred maintenance we got to fix. And so they may not be as sexy as something else that we'd love to see, like building that North Pavilion. Hey, that's really amazing. It's a beautiful pavilion. But right now, what we need to do is, over the first couple years, is really focus on deferred maintenance and fix it. And I think anytime that we can do something like that, where we can be able to transfer like a DPW vehicle and save the money from the millage funds, we're better off.
Miss Lane?
I would just like to bring to your attention that over the weekend, being up north, I talked to several people who have gone with excellent metal roofs, love them, changes the drainage around the facility where they are using them, and these were mostly homes up north. But secondly, one of the homes found out that they could get cell phone before they put the metal roof on, and now they can't. So I just would warn you to double check whether any of the cameras or any other technology out there, if we put the metal roof on, because it is an excellent use, whether it means we're going to have to make adjustments with any of that technology, only because that came up all this weekend with different people.
Sure.
Good point. Mr. Massey?
Yes, I have a concern. It appears to me every time we take a deep dive into something, since I have been a board member, we learn very quickly that the whole damn thing is in a disarray. Prior to us taking a deep dive, everything is fine. Okay, we're moving along, we enjoy what we got, everything is fine. And once we take a deep dive, hell breaks loose. I haven't gotten my arms around this. And we have had board members to say, everything is fine, we get along fine, things are moving along. But when we go and take a deep dive, hell has broken loose in all of the things that we have taken a deep dive into. That something puzzles me. What were we doing prior to this new board?
Ms. Lane?
Up until this board just recently deciding, number one, that we'd have a millage, and we got it passed, so we had some money to do it, the Parks and Rec operated on a need versus want, and the previous boards did not see the need. They turned it over to Parks and Rec, looked at it occasionally, but felt Parks and Rec had to put their money into improving it and didn't look at it personally as this is a township park. There were lots of groups like Rotary, baseball teams, Bud Stebbins that made substantial contributions in putting up sheds out there or donating and improving fields. But it was more the community doing it rather than the township board having the funds to put it in there. So that's what's happened over the years, and I think over the years we have built an excellent program. Everyone that's come here has always told us how well our programs were run, but we always did the best with the least amount of money that we had. But I think it's wonderful that the board is now deciding that, hey, this is a township park and we need to expend millage money and possibly some additional money from the general fund in order to bring it up to newer standards. Because we want to keep the tournaments and things.
I would think that, our programming is top notch, but the facility itself, there's good bones there, but it looks like a lot of deferred maintenance, and it's no fault of any one person or any one group, but we're going to move forward and we're going to make it a premier park is my hope. I mean, I know that when all of us visit different communities, our eyes are wide open at what they're doing, and I've heard a number of people on our board, tell me personally, hey, I saw this at this park and we need to do that with ours. And so I think our residents shouldn't be concerned that we're doing anything but trying to improve our bicentennial park, and it's just a matter of how quickly we can get there. But you're right, Mr. Massey, I think we are uncovering a lot of things that maybe, whether it's finances didn't allow for money to be spent or ownership wasn't taken, but I know this board has taken ownership of the park and said, hey, you know what? We're not going to just farm it out to somebody else. We're going to take personal responsibility for what's going on out there. And we see it as our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that, I think part of it is when that millage money passed, we said, hey, the voters want to make sure that money is spent in a responsible way. And so I think that also caused us to take some more ownership, or this board to take ownership. So we're not going to kick the can down the road with anything we're doing, whether it's the fire department, whether it's Parks and Rec, and police. We need to talk about police millage here shortly, and we're not kicking the can down the road on OPEB or healthcare. So you're right, we're dealing with a lot of stuff that from from years ago, and somebody has to do it, so we're doing it. So I appreciate, you know, everybody doing things that aren't real appealing. It's kind of like, you know, cleaning out your garbage can. It's not something you want to do, but it has to be done. Otherwise it gets real smelly. And that's what we're doing right now, is we're cleaning up a lot of things. Dennis, or Mr. Limita, I like where we're going on the capital projects. You know, I think the in terms of fixing the things that are out there, I would like to see us do some things that are beautiful and great and new, but right now we've got some fixing to do, and I think we need to start looking forward, though, to next year, maybe, when we can afford and have in advance some things maybe that are new to the park. And if we need to advance some money to get more things done more quickly, I'd be in favor of that as well. So, anything else, Mr. Atkins?
You know, if you look at like the DDA or Tech Village or any other areas that we're putting some focus on, more at a micro level within the township, it's almost like we need to do the same thing with parks, with our bicentennial park. You know, maybe it's something that I think each one of us have a creative concept in our mind, or bring some ideas from some other things we've seen. Maybe it's a good idea to look at what it would be to make some sort of a rendering. You know, maybe we unveil it at, you know, when we do our Christmas tree lighting event out there. Maybe it's, hey, this is the future of the bicentennial park. Maybe it illustrates, you know, a bunch of things that we say. You know, you do a master plan and we do all these things, but maybe we need to look at the bicentennial park as a separate vision. You know, maybe you call it vision whatever, and you put a year to it, and you get some illustrations out there in front of some people, get some excitement on it, and start to bring some ideas out of people's heads to life. You know, maybe it's you know, you have new landscaping, maybe you have a flagpole, maybe you have a bunch of different things that you incorporate in a nice big illustration of the park. You know, this is where we're heading. Then maybe we get some input from the residents, and maybe we take like a top 5 idea list and show what that looks like. You know, it's a great piece of property, but I think it's hard to visualize what it could be when you're trying to just do all these little maintenance updates that need to be done. So maybe you put like, you know, just like the DDA or something. Hey, this is what we're thinking this is going to look like. This is a 5-year plan just for this.
I like that idea.
So,
great suggestion. I think I really haven't seen a rendering of, you know, what this looks like, but you also get buy-in, I think, from potential donors, sponsors, you know, and the public too. I mean, if they can see what the pathways would look like, what the hill could look like. You know, we've got a hill out there, but what could we do to make it even more usable? I mean, we've talked about having concerts, or what would it look like if we were to make that a place for small concerts or movie nights? You know, what would we need to build into that? That's a great suggestion, Mr. Atkin. What do you think, Mr. Lehman? Is that something doable, or?
Yeah, I think as part of your, you know, we just completed, was it 2 years ago that we did the update to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the community? And a big part of that has to do with the things that we do out at Bicentennial Park. So I think we could probably do a supplemental, and the reason I say this because it can help us with grants, is to update that and get that conceptual plan like you're talking about, much like we did with the Tech Village when we developed that plan 3 years ago, was putting a conceptual plan together based upon the needs and, you know, the needs assessment and market assessment study. We can do the same thing with the Bicentennial Park. Update our 5-year master plan, and then that really helps us. There's grant monies out there. We just have to go after it. We have to work harder on it, and especially a lot of the stuff like turning things ADA bleachers, the pathways, that lead out to the ball fields, the jogging trails that are around there. There's so many things that we can do in the grant funds. They really look kindly when you're making it more inclusive for folks, especially looking at with a nod towards ADA bathrooms or ADA bleachers and paths. So I think this is a great idea. I think that, you guys want to work on that either as in a subcommittee or, we start putting that together as part of the master plan process. Overall, because you are going to be picking up some of that information, it might be a good time when they're holding those public meetings that with the planning commission is that they start really focusing a little bit on Bicentennial Park, and we can gauge some of those questions. What would you love to see there if money were no object? What, in the next 5 years, the next 10 years? I think you could create that conceptual plan that would go a long way.
Mr. Mansour?
So as part of that, we have some foam boards that are being created for a road show, having to do with the master plan that we're going to take to homeowner associations, service clubs, et cetera, Right now there's a set for residents, another set for visitors, depending on where we are. And it would be interesting, you could ask them to create another board with maybe a outline of Bicentennial Park with some of the main topographical features, the hill, the pond, and maybe sketch a couple of the fields in there, and kind of have people give some ideas. There are certain sectors of that property that might work for something. We can certainly ask them to add that.
Yeah, because depending on our population, for example, we have an aging population, so baseball fields are great, but...
Bocce ball fields or something.
What's that?
Bocce ball, courts or something.
Yeah, bocce ball, something,
Pickleball.
Pickleball.
Yeah.
We already have that. That's a possibility. That's already concepted in the existing apron.
We've got
Oh.
people out there already.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think pickle's already there.
So we just need
Anyway.
bocce ball.
Right, we just need bocce.
And make it indoor.
There you
Well, yeah, that would be
heaters.
another challenge.
Okay, so we'll talk more on Thursday on that. Anything else from Mr. Limita on that issue? Okay. Next item, board will discuss options for new logo and signage for the township. One of the things that our DPW department did, and I can get a copy to everybody, is they actually mapped out where all of the signs are that welcome people to Grand Blanc. So, for example, when you're coming across Baldwin Road into the township, there's a sign there somewhere that says, everybody's seen it, the light gray or white sign that says welcome to Grand Blanc Township. Near Fenton and Grand Blanc Road, there's one. What's so funny? So anyways, there's quite a few of them around. And so I've been on this mission to brand Grand Blanc Township and to come up with a better logo. That the logo we have is great, but it doesn't lend itself very well to, for example, being embroidered or really branding. It's difficult to tell what that picture is from any kind of distance. If we were to put that on a water tower, I'm not sure anybody, unless we painted the whole water tower, that logo is going to be able to tell what it is. So we've toyed around with a few different designs, and everybody received in their packet the GBT type layout with established in 1833, and we put a rendering in there of what maybe a sign would look like. Many of these entrances to the township, and then we also have the wall sign over at one of them that exists right now, or two of them, is actually at Hill Road and Fenton Road, and they used to be lit, or at least one of them did, and what you'd see on that rendering would be backlit. But we also have permission from a number of other property owners to do similar things at other entrances to the township that might be main thoroughfares. And so we've been playing around with it, and I'd appreciate any kind of input that board members can give on that. But we wanted something, we toyed with, for example, Independence Township. Well, their name kind of lends itself to having either an eagle or a flag as their logo, right? Some townships that are on a body of water, hey, it makes itself where they put waves on it. We talk about what do we put that represents Grand Blanc Township. And in not all cases do you have,
Geographic.
some kind of geographical thing or what have you. Many times, you know, you look at certain brands of products and they use the script, the lettering or the abbreviation as their logo, and so I liked the GBT type thing. It lends itself to being recognizable, and so anyways, take a look at it. We don't have to decide Thursday, but I would like to get moving on doing something. We've held off doing a sign out here in front of our building, the office building here, for a couple of years now, and I think we just need to move forward here pretty quick. Miss Lane?
I noticed that you had Craney's put together these drafts, and of course,
This one.
I love the brick walls that we have at Fenton and
Yes.
Hill Road. So I like that consistency, and I already have Maple and Dort covered.
Yep, I'd already talked to them, but we have a few others too.
Good. The question is, with your proposal, did they come up with any kind of, besides the drawings, an estimate of what it would cost? Because,
No,
okay,
we haven't asked them for that yet.
okay, because McDonald's and Rite Aid's owners put in those two walls, so I was just concerned that people would think that the township was going to be putting these things up and that would be an expense from our general fund.
Well, these would be from our general fund, but the wall is already there. What we'd be doing is replacing the lettering that's on there.
Okay.
Right now it says "Welcome to Grand Blanc," and that's it. But
Right.
in actuality, one of them is pretty much covered with flowers and planted in front of it. So
It looks pretty.
it looks pretty, but I want to brand our township and welcome people, let them know. You know, we have people even that live here that aren't sure whether, you know, at times you talk to them and I'm not sure if I live in the city or the township, or, you know, we have businesses that have Grand Blanc Township, Grand Blanc addresses, but they're actually in Mundy Township or Burton or what have you, and I think it's good that we let people know that when they're coming into Grand Blanc Township. So, but we haven't gotten prices yet, but before we get prices, we need to settle on whether or not we like the look and what have you, and then we can go out for prices. So take a look at it, consider it, and we'll talk more Thursday. Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Mansell?
Chair, I'd like for the focus, I would say probably 80% of the focus to be on the sign here at the Township Hall.
Yeah.
I think that should be the #1 priority.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
I think the other thing is that what we're looking at is, you know, some uniformity. If, you know, at the police department building over here with the fire department moving in, if we do something with this property behind us for DPW and fire department, we're going to need a monument sign. So I agree with you that we need to get going on a monument sign for the township, Mr. Massey. Okay.
And one on Dort Highway too, so the people know.
Well, if we build a DPW building and a fire station over there, I think definitely would have to have some type of monument sign over there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
it's a great idea.
Yeah. The next item on the agenda would be item F, and that is that the board will consider a resolution to authorize the 2019 Allied Challenge Golf Tournament presented by McLaren to be held at the Warwick Hills Golf and Country Club from September 9th through September 16th. And we're looking forward to that. And Mr. Laddie or Mr. Limita, anything to point out on this that's different than what we had to do last year? Or?
It occurred to us that it's been a couple weeks since you guys were asked to do a resolution supporting.
We've done 2.
Yeah.
Actually,
Not 3.
this is at the request of your planning and building department, and when you look at the resolution, you can see what it's really saying is that township staff will facilitate the review, approval, and compliance with site layout, security operations, police and fire protection, health, sanitation, vehicles, public and private parking, insurance, bonding requirements, and it will be handled by the staff. So it's really just a resolution that enforces the fact that our staff, because of the moving nature of this size of a national event, that you're basically granting them the authority to move them through that planning and building permitting process, so that everything we know is a safe and successful tournament like it was last year.
Okay. With that, I think what we're going to do now is I believe we want to have executive session. We're just going to make it a brief executive session because we'll go into longer detail on Thursday, but we need a brief executive session here this evening. And that would be to consider...
I'm going into contract negotiations now with all three police units as well as the full-time firefighters. I have dates scheduled for 2 of those unions. Currently, I do need some direction for the board, and I do have some information that I will hand out to all of you, and I'm just looking for some direction as we prepare to move into those later this month and the month following.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, that we go into executive session to consider labor negotiations for police and firefighters.
Second.
Roll call.
Go ahead, Ms. Lane.
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. We'll convene in just a couple minutes then.